You've heard the crowds roar when a wrestler goes through a table, but did you know some WWE superstars literally risk their lives in the ring? Career-ending falls and matches WWE executives desperately tried to stop became battlegrounds where every impact brought wrestlers closer to disaster. In this video, we're counting down 10 of the most extreme matches that shattered tables, chairs, and every rule in professional wrestling. These weren't ordinary bouts. They were survival tests where careers and bodies were permanently altered in seconds. And wait until you see our top pick, where one superstar ended up with teeth lodged in his nose while cameras kept rolling. The Undertaker vs. Mankind, Hell in a Cell, 1998. The Undertaker vs. Mankind, Hell in a Cell match at King of the Ring 1998 is the measuring stick for wrestling brutality. June 28, 1998, a date etched into wrestling history not because of who won, but because of what one man endured. The match began with something no one had scripted. Mick Foley, in his Mankind persona, inexplicably climbed to the top of the 16-foot cell structure while production headsets erupted in panic. An eerie silence fell over the arena as Foley stood precariously on the cage roof, his silhouette against the arena lights foreshadowing the chaos to come. When Undertaker tossed Mankind from the cell roof, the sickening crash through the Spanish announce table below sent Jim Ross into his now legendary call. "Good God Almighty, they've killed him!" The impact was devastating. A production assistant ran to a nearby phone to call for an ambulance, convinced they'd witnessed a death on pay-per-view. Terry Funk, watching backstage, later said he genuinely believed his friend had died. Meanwhile, Vince McMahon frantically tried to get medical personnel to Foley while deciding whether to cancel the match entirely. The company had never faced this level of legitimate danger before. Foley, barely conscious and placed on a stretcher, heard someone mention ending the match early. Despite his foggy mental state, missing teeth, and a separated shoulder, he pushed away medical help and climbed back up the structure, driven by a wrestler's instinct to finish what he started. The second fall came when the cell's panel unexpectedly gave way. Foley crashed through the cage roof, with a steel chair following him down and smashing into his face. The impact forced one of his teeth up through his nose and out his nostril. Referee Tim White almost stopped the match multiple times, especially after seeing the vacant look in Foley's eyes. Clear evidence of a severe concussion, but the match continued through thumbtacks and blood until its merciful conclusion. Triple H vs. Cactus Jack, Street Fight 2000. Just when WWE thought they had established clear boundaries for their more extreme matches, Triple H and Cactus Jack crossed every single line. In fact, the wooden pallet they smuggled under the ring was specifically prohibited because officials knew exactly how dangerous it could be when splintered into human flesh. The 2000 Royal Rumble street fight transformed violence into defiant rebellion. While WWE had set strict limitations on weapon use, both wrestlers secretly stashed unauthorized implements beneath the ring. This calculated move demonstrated their determination to create something memorable, regardless of company policy. The appearance of that wooden pallet sent immediate shockwaves through management. I remember seeing it and thinking, "This is going completely off the rails," one backstage producer later revealed. Horror quickly escalated to genuine panic when Foley, already competing with multiple injuries, took a pile driver directly onto the wooden slats. With his history of neck problems, this single move risked permanent paralysis. The sickening crack that echoed through the arena made even hardened wrestling veterans turn away. Blood flowed as the match intensified. Triple H and Foley systematically dismantled company guidelines about violence with each brutal exchange. What distinguished this encounter was the deliberate nature of their defiance. Unlike the spontaneous chaos of Hell in a Cell, these two performers consciously pushed beyond authorized boundaries while executives watched in growing alarm. The match's climactic moment raised even greater concerns. The section of ring that collapsed under Foley lacked proper testing beforehand, gambling with safety protocols in real time. This improvised stunt highlighted the lengths both men would go to create an unforgettable moment, even if it meant risking career-ending injuries. As one referee later admitted, "We all knew the line had been crossed, but we were too deep in it to stop what was happening." Edge vs. Mick Foley, Hardcore Match 2006. Turns out, WWE's ban on barbed wire was more of a suggestion to Mick Foley than an actual rule. By 2006, the company had explicitly prohibited this dangerous implement after numerous wrestlers required emergency medical attention backstage. But when it came time for his WrestleMania 22 showdown with Edge, Foley simply smuggled the forbidden weapon into the arena, concealed within the folds of his trademark flannel shirt. For Foley, creating an unforgettable match trumped any corporate safety mandate. This defiance established the foundation for one of wrestling's most dangerous spectacles. Edge, despite his rated R superstar moniker, had never competed in a true hardcore match. His inexperience with extreme elements heightened every risk, as he lacked the instinctual knowledge of like Foley found imperfect. The match's most infamous moment faced elimination before it began. Fire marshals discovered the planned flaming table and nearly prohibited it outright. Foley's personal intervention and safety guarantees secured their hesitant approval, a promise impossible to fulfill. The moment Edge speared Foley through that burning table, catastrophe struck. The lighter fluid ignited, wood crackled, flames surged upward. The fire, like an untamed beast breaking its chains, burned hotter and longer than anyone anticipated. Seconds stretched into agonized with second-degree burns, transforming theatrical danger into authentic peril. Recovery proved grueling. Both wrestlers needed weeks to heal, with Foley carrying permanent scars still visible today. The match's physical toll resulted in permanent reminders etched into their bodies. Yet amid the suffering, their objective succeeded. Edge transformed in fans' perception from opportunistic villain to legitimate tough guy, someone willing to endure real suffering for his craft. John Cena versus JBL, I Quit Match, 2005. Behind the family-friendly wrestling facade, some superstars were busy plotting their own blood-soaked spectacle. In 2005, as WWE executives actively pushed for cleaner programming, John Cena and JBL made a secret pact that would turn their I Quit match into one of the most notorious bloodbaths in modern wrestling history. What began as a championship showcase quickly descended into chaos when JBL raised a steel chair, paused momentarily as their eyes locked, then swung it at Cena's head. The blow wasn't supposed to connect with full force, just a glancing shot for dramatic effect. Instead, the chair sliced directly into Cena's forehead, severing an artery. Blood cascaded down Cena's face like a river breaking its banks, shocking even hardened wrestling veterans. The flow was so voluminous that the ring canvas became completely saturated, requiring full replacement after the match, a rare and expensive measure. Panicked producers frantically instructed camera operators to avoid close-ups of the wounded champion. The backstage situation deteriorated rapidly. While medical staff prepared to intervene, JBL escalated the violence by wrapping a cable around Cena's neck and dragging him across the entrance ramp, a move explicitly forbidden by WWE's legal department due to choking regulations. The company that had been trying to distance itself from its violent past was now watching helplessly as two rebellious performers transformed their PG program into a horror show. You won't find the most graphic footage from this match on official releases. Several segments were deemed too extreme even for home video, with WWE editing out the most blood-drenched moments. Despite losing concerning amounts of blood, Cena stubbornly refused medical attention until completing the match. After finally forcing JBL to utter "I quit" following a brutal assault with the steel ring steps, Cena was rushed backstage where doctors immediately administered 15 stitches to close the gaping wound on his forehead. Randy Orton versus Cactus Jack, Hardcore Match, 2004. While Cena's bloody ordeal shocked viewers, another superstar was about to discover the true meaning of pain. In 2004, Randy Orton, the pristine third-generation prodigy with his model looks and protected status and evolution, stepped into a nightmare he wasn't prepared for. Mick Foley, returning as the deranged Cactus Jack, had been specifically brought back for one purpose: to initiate this pampered young star into the brutal world of hardcore wrestling through genuine suffering. The contrast was undeniable. Orton, with his smooth skin and manicured appearance, represented WWE's polished new generation. He had never experienced the punishment Foley specialized in. The cameras caught genuine terror in Randy's eyes as realization dawned. This would be old-school brutality from a master of controlled mayhem. This match marked a pivotal collision of eras. WWE was actively transitioning from the blood-soaked Attitude Era toward family-friendly entertainment. Yet here stood Foley, embodying everything the company claimed to be leaving behind. The barbed wire-wrapped baseball bat tore actual flesh from Orton's body, leaving scars that would remain visible years later. A stark reminder of wrestling's brutal past meeting its sanitized future. Every wince, every scream from Orton was authentic. When Foley dumped hundreds of thumbtacks onto the mat and slammed the young superstar back first into them, Orton's agonized reaction was so real that his father, wrestling veteran Bob Orton, attempted to break through security backstage to rescue his son. The close-up shots revealed something beyond physical pain. The psychological shock of experiencing legitimate suffering for the first time in his privileged career. Backstage, medical staff worked with tweezers to remove dozens of metal tacks embedded in Orton's flesh, a painful process that continued long after cameras stopped rolling. These weapons penetrated flesh in ways that left permanent marks, both physical and psychological. Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. Hell in a Cell, 2002. Before the world knew Brock Lesnar as the Beast Incarnate, there was a baptism of blood that forever changed his trajectory. Inside Satan's structure at No Mercy, 2002, what was supposed to be a controlled demonstration of power turned into a legitimate medical emergency. The Undertaker, wielding a steel chair with his legitimately broken hand, delivered an accidental blow that sliced open Lesnar's forehead so deeply that medical personnel couldn't wait until after the match to treat it. The severity of Lesnar's wound caused something unprecedented in WWE history. Doctors actually entered the imposing Hell in a Cell structure while the match was still ongoing. As blood cascaded down his face in crimson streams, medical staff made the shocking decision to administer emergency stitches right there in the ring. Through it all, Lesnar's eyes revealed a primal determination, his body continuing to move forward even as medical personnel frantically worked to close the gaping wound. This wasn't a scripted moment of theatrical bleeding. This was survival instinct on display as Lesnar refused to yield despite a legitimate medical crisis unfolding before millions of viewers. His steadfast refusal to stop fighting cemented his reputation as an unstoppable force in that moment. The dangerous unpredictability of the match was amplified by The Undertaker's compromised control. The cast on his hand protected an actual fracture, limiting his precision with every weapon strike, especially those steel chair shots that opened Lesnar beyond what anyone had planned. Behind the scenes, network standards representatives were horrified when The Undertaker produced a steel chain to choke Lesnar, a move explicitly prohibited under broadcast guidelines. This violation of weapon protocols showed both men's willingness to push boundaries for an unforgettable spectacle. When these two titans crashed through the cell wall, the structure's metal framework wasn't properly prepared to break away cleanly. The result? Sharp, jagged edges that tore into both competitors' flesh, adding another layer of legitimate danger to this brutal contest. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, unsanctioned street fight, 2002. Shawn Michaels stared death in the face at SummerSlam 2002. His surgically repaired spine one wrong move away from collapse. Medical impossibility became wrestling reality when he stepped into the ring after 4 years away. The term unsanctioned match served as WWE's legal protection against what doctors were certain would happen. After catastrophic spinal damage, physicians delivered a devastating verdict. Returning to the ring might cost Michaels his ability to walk. His vertebral stability is compromised by at least 60%, one specialist reportedly warned. Any direct impact could cause permanent paralysis. The medical team flatly refused to clear him. Michaels' back was so compromised that WWE executives created an entirely new match classification to distance themselves from potential tragedy. Before facing his former best friend Triple H, Michaels had to acknowledge in writing that paralysis was a real possibility, and WWE wouldn't bear responsibility if the worst happened. What fans witnessed was a man literally risking everything. Triple H, understanding exactly what was at stake, targeted the surgically reconstructed spine with calculated precision. Each chair shot landed directly on vertebrae that medical professionals had explicitly warned could collapse under the wrong impact. The violence exploited a legitimate weakness that could have permanent consequences. Behind the scenes, tension mounted as the match extended well beyond its planned duration. Officials had mandated a maximum of 15 minutes to protect Michael's fragile condition, but swept up in the moment, the bout stretched to nearly twice that length. With each passing minute, the risk of catastrophic injury multiplied. Blood flow escalated from concerning to alarming, with Michael's face becoming so drenched that Vince McMahon himself nearly intervened. For 30 agonizing minutes, everyone watching held their breath, wondering if they were witnessing career suicide in real time. Many ringside veterans later admitted they fully expected to witness a tragedy unfold before their eyes. Sasha Banks versus Bayley. Hell in a Cell, 2020. While men's wrestling had pushed boundaries since the Attitude Era, women's matches remained constrained by invisible barriers, until 2020, when Sasha Banks and Bayley shattered the ceiling that had long separated men's violence from what women were allowed to do on WWE programming. Behind closed doors, these two former best friends constructed a revolutionary plan. Their Hell in a Cell match aimed to settle a betrayal and prove women deserved the same extreme opportunities as their male counterparts. Fans remained unaware that Banks and Bayley had secretly designed spots that officials would have immediately vetoed had they known the full extent of their plans. WWE executives had maintained stricter limitations on women's matches for decades, prohibiting blood, dangerous weapons, and high-risk maneuvers that were standard in men's programming. Banks and Bayley challenged this double standard directly. When Banks wrapped a chair in a heavy chain, creating a weapon unprecedented in women's wrestling, she signaled the demolition of antiquated restrictions. Creative vision clashed with corporate boundaries when officials attempted to sanitize the match, particularly targeting a spot where Banks would trap Bayley's head between chair legs, deemed too violent for women to perform. Yet these high-risk elements survived the censorship attempts. The match's defining moment arrived unplanned. During a sequence where Banks drove Bayley through a ladder with her Meteora, the structure collapsed like the very gender barriers they fought against. A jagged metal shard sliced open Banks's hip, blood visibly seeping through her gear. Commentators remained silent. Banks, undeterred, continued without hesitation. When Banks secured victory with the Banks statement using a chair, both competitors had transcended previous limitations through physical sacrifice. Their most powerful statement came afterward, hiding their injuries from management, refusing to let their wounds reinforce the stereotype they'd fought to destroy. Through their defiance, they permanently redefined what women's wrestling could be, opening doors for every female performer who followed. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. I Quit, Hell in a Cell, 2020. Physical sacrifice for career advancement is one thing, but what about sacrificing your family's sacred traditions for a storyline? In a business built on fake fighting, the line between performance and reality completely disappeared when Roman Reigns decided that making his cousin bleed wasn't going far enough. He needed to break his spirit in ways that left lasting psychological damage long after the cameras stopped rolling. Roman's return as the self-proclaimed tribal chief directly challenged authentic Samoan family hierarchy, shocking elders within the wrestling community. Several Samoan wrestling veterans expressed concern backstage. This portrays family betrayal in ways that cross cultural red lines. These traditions shouldn't be exploited for entertainment, remarked one respected elder. The psychological manipulation reached devastating heights when Roman threatened Jey's entire identity within their family structure, a threat that resonated deeply because it tapped into genuine concerns about status within their shared Samoan heritage. This weaponization of real family relationships made the storyline transcend typical wrestling narratives. The leather strap Reigns used symbolized a disturbing power dynamic. It made network executives uncomfortable with its resemblance to historical family abuse. Despite WWE's strict PG-era guidelines prohibiting overly realistic family violence, officials allowed this match to proceed, recognizing its emotional storytelling potential. Reigns' closed-fist strikes landed with such force that Uso appeared on SmackDown the following week with visible swelling. Makeup artists struggled to conceal it. Witnesses reported Jay wincing in genuine pain during post-match interviews that weren't scripted. The chokehold that made Jay legitimately gasp for air had referees frantically signaling Reigns to ease pressure. The boundary between performance and reality blurred completely. What began as storytelling evolved into something far more consequential, a cultural statement that challenged not just wrestling norms, but fundamental family values that had governed generations of Samoan wrestlers. The Rock versus Mankind. I Quit match, 1999. Ever wonder what kind of violence was so extreme it got permanently banned from professional wrestling? In 1999, during what should have been just another I Quit match at the Royal Rumble, The Rock crossed a line that changed WWE forever. What began as a typical Attitude-Era confrontation between the corporate champion and the everyman Mankind transformed into something far more disturbing when The Rock picked up a steel chair. The plan called for 5 chair shots, already excessive by today's standards. But something changed in that moment. The Rock, caught in the match's intensity, abandoned the script. The planned sequence erupted into a relentless barrage of strikes, like a thunderstorm that refuses to pass. Each unprotected blow crashed directly onto Foley's skull, the sickening impact of metal, striking bone making even hardened wrestling fans wince. The medical consequences were immediate and severe. Foley suffered a concussion so profound he experienced significant memory loss, unable to recall major portions of the match afterward. The true horror of the moment extended beyond the physical damage inside the ring. As part of the documentary Beyond the Mat, Foley's young children were filmed watching this brutality unfold from ringside, their faces crumpled in horror, tears streaming down as they watched their father being brutalized. This raw footage would later prove instrumental in forcing the wrestling industry to confront its most uncomfortable question. At what point does entertainment become abuse? The match's conclusion only added controversy. Foley never actually uttered "I quit." Instead, WWE producers played a recording from an earlier interview to create the illusion of submission, manipulating both the audience and match stipulation. This encounter became a pivotal moment in wrestling safety protocols. As medical understanding of brain injuries advanced, the footage served as damning evidence of wrestling's most dangerous practices. WWE eventually implemented a complete ban on unprotected headshots, acknowledging the potential for devastating long-term consequences. The brutal matches we've examined represent wrestling's most extreme moments, but they've also sparked an important reckoning within the industry. Many retired performers now question if their sacrifices were truly worth it. Mick Foley once admitted, "I wonder if giving up my body peacefully, stricter safety protocols while reducing extreme matches frequency." Like the performers themselves, the industry walks a tightrope, balancing the spectacle fans crave against protecting those who sacrifice their bodies in the squared circle.